Right, we're back online. Everybody's ready to go? Beautiful. All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name's Damien. You can find me on the forums under Damo1271. Before I get started, I might just give you a little bit of a background as to myself and my display. My background is in electronic engineering, so I'm probably a little bit lucky in that I do understand electrics, I do understand electronics, and I do make a lot of my own stuff. That can actually be a curse, believe it or not. When you know a little bit, it's kind of, oh yeah, that'll be okay, when really it's not. So, you know, those exposed 240 volts wires across the ground, she'll be right. Nobody in their right mind will touch those, but it's not. So, as I say, I do a lot of my own stuff. In fact, I do everything myself. I haven't really bought any displays. I do have this perverse sort of logic that spending $50 on the bits and spending 300 hours making a display kind of works out better than spending $60 on a display. I don't know how it works, but it's just me. Nonetheless, I think certainly doing it yourself for me gives a lot of satisfaction. Firstly, the fact that I do it myself, and you know, when you're talking to the people who come to see the displays and they say, "Where did you buy that?" Well, actually I didn't, I built it. Oh, where did you buy that? Well, I didn't, I built that too, etc. I get a lot of satisfaction, and you know, it keeps me busy on the weekends, etc., building these bits and pieces. As far as my display, this year will be my third year of doing a display. I started right out from day one on a computerised display. It was only last year I actually added static strings that weren't computerised, and this year hopefully I'll expand it. So what I wanted to do this morning was really just give people a little bit of a background into some of the wireframe devices or wireframe elements that I've built, and hopefully pass along some of the things that I've learnt in doing it, and hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes I've made as well. Give you I'll start off, I'll just show you a very brief little video of what these cool little six-legged reindeers actually look like. This one, as with all of them, didn't quite get finished last year. They were on the roof. Ray was a bit late getting his rope light to me. There's a few hold-ups, so unfortunately the mounting brackets are very substandard, so I do apologise for that. And this is, it normally does not have Cat 5 intestines either. That's hidden out over there. It's just convenient. So that's how he lives in my shed at the end of the year. There's 3 of these and a Santa sleigh as well. So I'll just show you a little video of what the six-legged reindeer actually looks like. You don't see many six-legged reindeers. They're very hard to catch. They're very rare. It's very poor quality, and I do apologise for the quality of the video. But basically, you can see them up on the roof. They're running away, and believe it or not, they're the reindeer, and Santa's at the back there. So that's the final product. So now let's look a little bit at how we came to get there. Oh, it's plugged out of the back of it. Cool. Alrighty. Alright. Okay, so what I really want to cover this morning is really about the process I went through to get from the very start of the design right through to the end of having these things sort of stuck up on the roof and running, so to speak. So to start off with, it really comes down to the design and how do you do that, where do you get them from? And there's a few ways. If you want something specific, draw your own. But not everybody's an artist, like me, not very good at this art stuff. So colouring in books, fantastic source of this thing. Go on the web, type in, you know, colouring in Christmas, and you'll have books and websites popping up like crazy. And that's really what I did. And the other thing, of course, is you can grab little elements. You might like that sleigh and that reindeer. So you can grab different elements that you want to build. And of course, look for fairly simple designs. At the end of it, you know, if you look at the reindeer, I've kept him fairly simple. I've just tried to capture the elements. You know, if you look at the dolphin that we've got on the other side of the room there, again, they're just very simple outlines. You can't capture a lot of detail in the wireframe, as I found out. Certainly not when you're trying to attach 12mm rope light to it. You're very limited in your detail there. I'll give you an example. These sort of things are probably too complex. While they're, you know, really cool drawings, I suppose, and particularly the Santa, if you try and do that in LEDs, good luck. But to try and use rope light, you're going to fail. So try and keep them fairly simple, just solid outlines. It also makes your whole life a lot easier when you're trying to bend wire, join bits of wire, etc. I'm lucky, I'm like, if you haven't guessed already, I'm very hands-on. So, you know, I do it all, whether it's metalwork and welding, woodwork, carpentry, electronics. I'm just one of those people, I get my hands dirty. So, yeah, whether I do it in steel, welding, etc. But if you're unable to weld, unable to join these things, simpler is better, because simpler has less joins. And we'll talk about that in a little while. So, you found your design on the internet. Now you've actually got to get there and build it. So how do you go about that? The way I did it was I transferred my design to a template. And there are a few ways. If you're lucky enough to have a projector or somebody with a projector, you can project it up onto the screen, trace around it. I don't have a projector. So I hand drew this using what I call a grid method. It's an age-old thing. I don't pretend to have invented this or thought of it. So I hand draw it using the grid. And finally, it doesn't have to be perfect. My first little reindeer, I can't remember whether this was the first one or the second one that I made, I tried to be perfect and then realised, gee, that was a waste of time. So straight up front, don't spend time getting it perfect. If you get the basic outline, close enough's good enough from this. These reindeer on my house are viewed from 30 metres away. Any imperfections, nobody knows. They're not going to see it. And exactly as somebody was saying before, you know that red pixel's out, nobody else will. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So what do you do? All right, this is the design for the little waving Santa that I've got. And first thing, draw some grids on him. Now one of the tricks here is that you can scale it to the size that you want by drawing the relative grid. So I'll give you an example. What I did, this is my template, and it's rather messy, and I thought I'd bring this one rather than a piece of wood with some lines drawn on it, because this is what I used for both the reindeer and the Santa, and you know, you can see outlines under there where I've rubbed it off with the rubber, etc. First thing to do, draw up your grid on your template. This is the template. These happen to be about 12 centimetre squares. Why 12 centimetres? Just worked out that way. I don't know, there was a reason at the time, but it doesn't matter. They can be 10, 12, 20, etc. Don't make them too big, and don't make them too small. 12, 10 is probably about a good size. Once you then have your size here on your template, you can then work out how big and how many lines on your display to draw. So, I wanted this total display takes up an area about 5 metres wide on my roof. So working that backwards, I had 3 reindeers and a Santa, and so I'll just move a little bit and get me some feedback there. So I had 3 reindeers and a Santa, so I figured each one needs to be about 1 metre wide. This board was probably 1200mm, and I think that's probably how I got the 10, so I worked out, okay, I want 10 grids on there. Then it's just a simple matter of scaling your drawing with a number of grids on there to give you the size that you want. And of course, if you want it a little bit bigger, if you want it 1.2 metres, just make your grids 20% bigger. If you want it 0.8, make them 20% smaller, and so on and so forth. Once you've got your grids, all I did was simply printed out the diagram on an A4 sheet of paper. And then you start drawing. And of course, you might not be an artist. It doesn't matter, because anybody can draw. I'm sure you can draw a half a curve, or a straight line, or a little squiggle. You're not drawing a Santa and a sleigh. All you're drawing is that. So I'll try and point it out here. This is his hand. So you've got his hand up here. So all you need to draw is that little piece of his hand. Then on the next square, you draw that little piece, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to be an artist to do this. All you have to be able to do is work out this line starts at these coordinates and goes down to there. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Guesswork is fine. You'll end up with a whole heap of rubbing out, etc. The other tip is you don't have to, if you want a really big display, you don't have to use, 8x4 sheets of this stuff. You'll see a very weirdly distorted Santa because, and this probably won't come out on the video, but you can sort of see his head up here because I had to redo his head, because if I'd have drawn him to scale, his head's up actually about here. So I drew the sleigh, I built the sleigh, then I built the Santa to go in the sleigh. So it seems complex, but very easy, because once you've got it drawn here, the next stage is where it really gets easy. So we'll work on that next. I've lost the mouse. There we go. All right. I've brought pretty much the entire toolbox with the exception of a hammer and a vise that I use to build these things. Here it is. That's about all the tools that I really used, and as I say, a hammer and a vise to build these little critters. The pliers, fairly self-evident. You want to bend the stuff. The ring spanner. This was, I'm going to claim this as a moment of genius, because I'm in the shed and I was looking around, how am I going to bend this stuff? I've got this 3 metre length of steel that's sort of flapping around in the breeze. I thought, how am I going to bend this? And this actually came up as the ideal tool for doing gentle bends. Simply put it there, 3 fingers, have a bend. The other tool I used was a piece of 1/4 inch thick steel, drilled about well, this is 5mm rod, so it's got about a 1/4 inch hole in it, 6mm hole in it, and same deal, you just feed it on and bend. So if you want a sharp bend, that's where the hammer and the vise comes in. If you want a really sharp bend, A, avoid them, but B, if you absolutely have to, this, I didn't bring the gas canister, this is a little gas burner off of AliExpress, costs you about $9 for this little head. You buy the cans of gas for $4, for about 3 or 4 cans at Kmart, Big W Bunnings. They screw on there, this will heat this stuff up, no problems, and then it just bends like jelly, just zoop. So that's quite a handy little tool. So if you want real sharp bends, use that hammer and vise, etc. Bigger the hammer, the sharper the bend. It's my theory. If you want a gentle bend, let's say the curve of his head, it's just a matter little teeny movements like that. And what you'll actually get is a fairly nice, neat radius. And as you go, this is where your template comes in. So if we're making, I don't know, let's say this bit down the bottom, this little spiral, we can match it up. So as we go, you do get a point where you can't bend it too much further. And you put the spanner on the other way, you get a bit more purchase on it. And the vise is also good to, when you get a kink like that, you can straighten him out a little bit. What I normally do, I don't worry about the end because you can't bend the very end bit. I'll just start from here and just snip that bit off. So as you go, that's starting to get close. So we would just keep bending around here as we go. Oops, now I'm doing this deliberately. So the other thing you do need to do, you can see how there I've bent that, it's off kilter. Try and avoid that. It's fairly easy. Stick it in the vise, straighten it up. It's not, doesn't have to be perfect, and as I say, I'd cut that last little bit off. So that's generally how quick and easy it is. You know, if I was doing it, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Sometimes I'd probably work a little harder to make it nice and even to the thing. So as I say, a little bit of patience, a little bit of work, fairly easy to bend these things up. What you'll end up with then is a whole heap of bits of wire that you then need to join up. We'll come to that in a few moments. Where do you get this stuff? This is 5mm galvanised steel, galvanised because it goes outside and it's going to last a long time. You can buy this at Bunnings, but it's a ridiculous price. You know, anything from Bunnings in this kind of area is just stupid. So generally I go to steel suppliers. I buy mine from Southern Steel Supplies down on down at Lonsdale somewhere, Sheriff's Road, Sullivan's Beach Road, can never remember which. Normally I buy about 30-40 metres at a time. I can't remember what 30 metres costs. It's under $30, 25 plus GST, something like that. So it's fairly cheap. You can buy heavier stuff. You can buy that gear. I did try bending it, but unless you've got oxyacetylene, you're really going to struggle with this gear. What I will probably use this for though is brackets, so strengthening brackets. One of the things is to, as part of your design, to think about how you're going to mount it and where you're going to mount it, and also where to strengthen it. As I say, I ran out of time, so I just cable tied these on, did a bit of a bend and whatnot at home in the shed. But you see, there's a little bit of flex there. It doesn't really matter, it's on the roof after all, who cares? But if I were to do it again, I'd probably put some verticals down through here just to, you know, stop some of that flex. But once he's up there, it doesn't move. It's really irrelevant. But if you're doing a bigger one, I'd certainly recommend putting some strengthening brackets on there. Okay. All right. There we go. I've talked about bending. Got ahead of myself. I'm terrible like that with PowerPoint. Joining these parts. That's always the challenge. As I say, I mean, I have a welder at home and it's really easy. I just pull out the welder and start welding the thing. If you are inclined to do that, I use a MIG welder. I find with arc welders, I just turn this into a molten puddle of nothing when I arc weld. MIG welding's really easy. You just turn down the temperature and the current, and it's real easy to MIG weld. Surprisingly, I can't remember where I was, but I reckon I saw a MIG welder for about $150 the other day in, I reckon it's somewhere like Super Cheap or something like that, and it was a ridiculous price, and I went, what? I think I paid like $700, $800 for mine, and then I saw this $150 thing. I thought, gee whiz, for the amount I do, that's probably the way I would go nowadays, because I don't do a lot. It's just handy. As I say, you can arc weld it. That will certainly work. You just got to be a little more skilled than me. MIG welding's real easy. The other one you can do is raise weld it. And believe it or not, your little gas torch here will actually get it hot enough to braze weld. So for those of you who may or may not be aware of what the difference is between MIG arc and braze welding, MIG and arc welding create an electrical current and basically you melt the metal together. Braze welding is a little more like soldering in that you're getting the metal hot and then you're using another piece of this brazing rod, it's an alloy rod, to actually join the pieces of metal. So one of these and a little bit of patience, you could actually braze these together. And again, if I've seen brazing rod at Bunnings, don't buy it there, go to a plumbing supply or somewhere like that. But you'll need brazing rod, brazing flux, and then you should, with one of these little critters, be able to braze weld your stuff together. The other way of joining it, I haven't tried this, so I don't know how well it works. Overlap the pieces and cable tie them. Several cable ties. If you were going to do that, you just need to think about it when you design it. And you would probably end up with a whole lot more bends and bits and pieces so you can create overlapping spots where you could then cable tie it together. And cable tie is pretty much everything that, something that everyone has in their house, I'm sure, if they've done anything with Christmas lights. Last one, I suppose, there's good old duct tape. Again, I don't know. Mythbusters used it to get off an island, so surely we can join a couple of bits and pieces together to join a wireframe together. As I say, once you've then got your wireframe, it's really then about adding the next part, which is actually paint it. If you are welding it, whenever you weld something, particularly galv, destroys the galvanised, so it will rust. So you need to paint it. I meant to bring a paintbrush, I forgot. First thing I did was I went out and bought a can of black rust guard spray can. You're sitting here spraying this thing, and most of the spray ends up wherever, in your backyard somewhere. So then I went and bought a tin of rust guard, dipped the brush in and started painting. It's rather awkward, so try and illustrate with something that isn't a brush. The easiest way I found, dip your brush in the paint and then just slap it like that. You don't want too much paint or you're going to end up blacker than this. Like I use black, but just slap it. You get around the other side and you get 90% of your coverage. A really, really quick technique. I can paint one of those in probably about 5 minutes doing that. If you sit there and you try and do that, brush it nice and carefully, takes forever. Slap it, just what I found is you can do it sort of in 3 spots, there, and there, and you get complete coverage with sort of 3 goes over it. So just a handy little tip in terms of painting it. And again, with the rust guard, I don't know if anyone's ever used it. It's an epoxy type paint. It dries really, really hard. But when you end up with brush marks in it, they sort of, I don't know how to describe it, they shrink out. So you don't even have to worry about brush marks. Just get a slap of paint on there and close enough's good enough. If you do weld it, make sure you go around the joints just to, that's the only place where I'll really make sure it's got a good coating of paint because that's where it's really going to rust. The rest of it though, that should last for years. As I say, I've used this on a shade house out the back, single coat of paint, and it's been there 10 years. Never rusted, not even looking like rusting. Okay, and then finally, attaching the rope light. Again, I've used rope lights, so they're really just cable tied on. The only trick, of course, is try not to put the cable ties over the LEDs, but other than that, it's really just cable tying them. Lots and lots of cable ties. Where the rope light is too long, again, I just use black insulation tape just to hide the extra LEDs here. And even though this looks like a complete and utter sort of mess here, again, at night when you're miles away, you only get to see the legs, etc. And then the final version, a little bit sort of better photo there, is that one there, and I've managed to catch Santa when both his arms are waving. He doesn't normally have two arms. So that's, in a nutshell, the basic process that I use to create those wireframe elements. This photo only shows 2 reindeer. There's actually 3 in there. Again, as I mentioned, we were a bit late getting the rope light, so it was a real rush to get him up on the roof. To give you an idea on the total cost there for the wireframes, the steel, and I've still got probably 3 or 4 lengths still sitting there, it's about $25. A couple of bits of pipe uprights that I've used to mount it on. They were scraps that I had around the house, but you know, whatever you use to mount it, there's a few dollars worth there. And then the cost of the rope light, which is you know, $2 or $3 a metre. Surprisingly, it does use a far more rope light than you imagine. So total cost there, including rope light, I think is probably well under $100, and that's 3 reindeer, the sleigh, and the display that's, as I say, is over 5 metres long. Well, as I say, you can see the length of the reindeer there, so 3 of those and a thing. So that's how I do it, and hopefully encourage you to, you know, give it a go. You know, it does give you the option of making something that is unique to your display, that no one else has, and give you something to do on a wet and miserable weekend like this. So we've got any questions? Is there anything I went over too quick or missed, or? Yeah?
When Shell posted the video of the instructions on making up those her Santas that she made up there, she actually linked to a online poster printing site. You can get a whatever size JPEG you've got, and print it out onto 5 sheets, 10 sheets of A4, whatever suits you, if you want to do that rather than to make a template.
You could. I thought of that, but one of the things is if you use the paper, when you're trying to bend this, it scratches it and it rips it, and you end up with all sorts of mess. So this does take a bit of time, but it's robust. I was actually going to put it on this when I welded it, but I decided not to, because this is only 3mm MDF, and yeah, exactly. So it doesn't last too long, so I thought, look, I'll, yeah. But you're absolutely right, you know, there's no reason that you couldn't scale it and print it out, and then, you know, even then draw it on, you know, from the paper. So, you know, if you went over it in a nice thick texture, you'd probably get enough of an outline there to give you what you want. But you're right, that's certainly another very good way of scaling it. And again, being an engineer, I have that sort of 3-dimensional type mathematical reasoning minds. So I know what something, when I print it out that big, when I scale it 3 times, I know what it's going to look like. Not everybody has that capacity. So printing it out on paper might be a very good way of doing it. You know, just the old literal cut and paste with a sticky tape. I've done that before, so no, very good, very good. All right, any other questions? Yep.
With the rope light, is it all clear and you paint the red part for your set?
Oh no, I bought red. So yeah, I just bought 2 50-metre rolls, one of red, one of white, and went, yep, I'll use the red somewhere else later. So there's only about 3 or 4 metres of red on it, the rest is white. Yeah.
Where do you get the rope light? I've got a lot of old 240 motifs I want to update. So
I bought it from Ray Wu.
Okay.
It's probably the only thing I've ever bought from him. But yeah, I just went on, and I think they're 50-metre rolls, big coils like that, and off they came, and I reckon it's, I don't know, whatever his price was. It was pretty cheap. Then the wiring of them is, and again, if you were just replacing a standard motive, the wiring's very easy because you've just got 2 wires at the end of the rope light. Of course, what I always want to make things hard for myself. Given that I've got 6 legs and 3 of them need to run, I did 3 legs because with the body and then each of the legs it gives me 4 channels, which is I find very convenient for the design. I use Renard controllers, so you've got generally banks of 8. Then I use 4-channel DCSSRs. So having 4 channels with this sort of thing means I have 1 controller, 1 Cat5, so it's real easy. So it's a bit annoying, you end up with heaps of wires and all of that sort of thing, and a lot of soldering there. But if you were just replacing rope light straight up, it'd be real easy. But even if it is animated, it's just a matter of just got a lot of cuts and a lot of solders and a lot of joints to do on the rope light. Oops, I've missed one there, so naughty.
Question that might be tied in.
Yep.
The ears done because of the cut length. Whatever the minimum length you can cut
These ears, or the antlers, the ears. The ears are not, he doesn't have ears. You can't hear either. I ran out of time, quite simply. One of his ears is actually sitting on my workbench at home, and I just got sick of it, to be honest, because after trimming and cutting the rope light and soldering the wires on and then running wires, I went, look, it's just too hard, I can't be bothered, and he'll be fine without ears. Nobody's complained yet, so I think you're the first person to notice that he's got ears but no lights. So yeah, the minimum length, this was 24 volt, I hope it was 24 volt, that's what it gets plugged into. This is 24 volt rope light, and that's the other trouble when if you've got plug and play, it's real easy because everything's the same, but I run 24 volt, 12 volt, I've got 48 volt, 5 volt, so I've got to remember, I'm going to start colour coding it this year. The rope light, I found that you can actually cut more frequently than the cut marks. When you look along, and I can't remember now, I have to sit down and have a look if anybody's interested, but I think the 24 volt you can cut every 12 LEDs, if I remember correctly, even though the cut marks are every metre. It's a matter of looking and seeing where the joins are. I can draw down the schematic for the rope light, it's pretty easy, and you can actually cut more frequently. So you do have a number of length limits, and hence why the black tape and why his front legs look a bit complex down here. So yeah, but whatever it works out to be. Yep, far away.
I'm sure this will probably get explained later, but how do you connect the power to the rope light after you cut it?
Yeah, it's probably easiest if you, again, I don't know if this is the best way, but once you've cut it, and fortunately I've missed putting a little insulation tape cap on this one. What you have in the middle of the rope light, and you won't see it from there, but feel free to come up after, there's the two wires there. So all I do, I just get a very sharp knife and slice off about 5 mil, tin the ends of the wire, then I just grab my speaker wire, solder them on, fold it back over, and then wrap it up with insulation tape. So it's fiddly, and that's why I didn't do the ears. I'm just going to move out of that feedback zone. That's why I didn't do the ears, because it's another 2 or 3 reindeer, it's 6 more joins that I had to do, and I just went, nah, look, it's too hard, and I need this thing on the roof. It was already December, so.
How flexible is the actual rope light compared to what I use as a
Well, that flexible. I mean, it's really bendy. You can see, this radius here. I do have to cable tie it to keep the radius, but that's almost bent back on itself. So that's that was one of my original worries, that it wouldn't be flexible enough, because I was really worried about the antlers, and I went, oh God, I hope these work. So yeah. There are points, this bit here where I couldn't follow the wireframe because the rope light just would not bend there. I'm sure I could probably get the heat gun out and make it bend better, but I haven't tried that. Yeah, I'll give it a try one day, but yeah, as you say, you know, that's bent at, you know, what's that, 40 mil, that one's probably even less, 30 mil, so.
Have you tried painting any of that to see if it's white or if it's a colour?
Painting
The actual strip, rope light.
the rope light itself?
Yeah.
No, I just bought the colour. Is that what you mean?
That object with lots of different colours in it.
Yeah, you could. I haven't, no. I kept the design very simple for that very reason, because, again, being new to it, I hadn't worked with rope light. I'd designed all of this before the rope light arrived. I'd built all the wireframes. The rope light still hadn't arrived. It kind of arrived, I can't remember now, it was like December something, so I managed to get 2 of these up on the roof in the Santa, and then I sitting there looking at it, so the 3rd one didn't go up until about the 20th of December, something like that. It's like, yeah, pretty much, and hence why, you know, I've just got these sort of brackets that I knocked up real quickly and just cable tied on. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly something you could try, or the other thing I was thinking of originally was some sort of coloured tubing to go over it. But the cost of it and the hassle is probably prohibitive. However, if you want to strip that long, it probably isn't, because that's where, you know, you can't cut and join the rope light like that.
In the old in-can days, we used glass paint. I was just wondering if that would be the same sort of stuff used on this.
Quite likely. I'd just be worried, I mean, this is flexible, so whether or not the paint would remain flexible is hard to say, whether it would crack and peel off, because I don't know. I've never tried, so if I do, I'll let you know. But the only other thing, you'd need a pretty watery sort of paint, because, you know, normally I just use Rust Guard for everything, or you know, wattle Solar Guard, so it probably doesn't lend itself real well to light shining through.
There was talk at the Melbourne Mini about doing colouring them as well. Somewhere there was a post on the forum, I think, that used clear plumber's glue and maybe food dye for colouring them.
Wow, yeah.
I haven't tried it, but I had a look at the video or pictures of what it looked like, and it looked like a good process. And because it actually does bite into the plastic, it's meant to be a pretty permanent
stay, yeah.
thing.
Yeah, if you get a nice even coat, I reckon, yeah, that would be well worth a try. The other one, and again, it'd be cost prohibitive, and but you know, I've used it before on little globes, is nail polish. So if you want to change the colour of an ink can, just nail polish is a real cheap, easy solution, and you know, there's umpteen zillion colours out there, so you can do whatever. But with LEDs now, it's replace it with an LED is my argument. Get the right colour and stick it in. So yeah. Okay, any other questions? Beautiful, thank you. I'll hand back over to Matt.
That'll do it, yeah. Right, thank you very much for that, Damo. That was very good. Yeah, just on that little bit of making things, there's one thing I found making my own little Christmas trees, and I haven't got anything to show, but basically any design, any shape, and exactly what Damo used with his steel and all that, that's what I used. And the easiest way I found out, it was with a MIG welder and 2 people. And I worked out, and to give an example of, all I did was worked out, okay, I wanted a tree that high. What do I need to do that? How am I going to make it? I'd like to have it symmetrical, so I worked out, I'll just use this tie as an example, everybody can see. I say, okay, and if I put it out at an angle, that looked about as high as I wanted it. And I wanted it symmetrical, so how many I needed to do it. So we worked it out, and I needed sort of, to give it a good even flow, I got 8 pieces of steel, put it together, then worked out what it looked like on the angle. Then I drew a circle, drew 8 holes, 8 pieces of rod, same rod that Damo had, on a workbench. Mate of mine, the big thick heavy glove, and just remember Davo mentioned a lot about safety of glasses and so forth. It's very important that. Held them all together, welded the top all at the same time, the whole lot with a MIG welder. Then, when they're all welded, at the same time, dragged each one out and put in the holes. It cooled off, when you took it out, there was a framework already done. To make them stable down the bottom, what I did was, on the first one, got a piece of rod with a piece of string, worked at how long it was, exactly on the same thing, bend it in a vise, or like with Damo's little tool there, just bend it around in a full circle, made more exactly the same thing, slipped it over the top and tacked it, and I had the Christmas tree. I made 25 like that in one afternoon, and I made a heap of little small ones, about like that, 36 of them in a weekend. Didn't take long. As soon as the design, the shape was worked out, very simple way. So that's just on the flow with Damo, sorry, and just a little bit of the paint on the top. You're laughing. They're not very hard, but no. I thought I'd just add that in after Damo's little exercise on there. So it's a small little process, didn't take long at all, but the design work was the hardest, was just working out the spacing and why it went. So, all right, any questions on that? All right, thank you.
We might just break for a quick 5-minute, 10-minute break. You up next, are you, Rob? Sure. Okay, so we'll move on to one more presentation, then we'll have some lunch, and we'll move on to the rest for the day. If anyone's got any questions for any of the presenters, please come up and ask afterwards. Also, if I can just ask for any presenters, if there's questions from the floor and I don't get the mic to them in time, just repeat the questions so these guys online don't crack the sads because they don't know what the question is. So, all right, guys.